Good morning, students. Dear students, today we are going to discuss about the integration of population concepts in different school subjects. The need to introduce population education core message in the Asia Pacific program of education for all was first recognized during the UNESCO experts group meeting held in 1986. To determine the effectiveness of this program in improving the quality of life in the region, the UNESCO POP Regional Consultative Seminar on Population Education held in 1986 noted that many countries in the region had not yet integrated population education core messages in their primary, literacy, and continuing education program to provide the target groups with opportunity to learn about the nature and scope of population related problems and issues and their alternative solutions. The seminar recommended that regional seminars in appeal be convened to develop alternative designs and prototype materials illustrative of population education core messages in primary literacy, and continuing education programs. The same agenda was taken up to the World Conference on Education for All, meeting basic learning needs held in Jomtien, Thailand in March 1990, and the Regional Consultative Seminar on Population Education held in Bangkok, Thailand in May 1990. Two regional workshops were organized by the UNESCO Principal Regional Office for Asia and Pacific in collaboration with Directorate General of Non-Formal Education, Youth and Sports, Ministry of Education and Culture, Government of Indonesia at Jayagiri, Bandung from 9 to 28th October 1989. And the primary and non-formal education wing of the Ministry of Education, Government of Pakistan, Islamabad from 20 to 30 May 1991. The workshops were two of the activities approved in the 1989 for Indonesia and 1991 for Pakistan. Work plan of the Population Education Advisory Team UNESCO PROP financed by UNFPA through Project RAS/86/P13 Population Education Program Service Regional Advisory Team on Population Education. Regional workshop objectives. The objectives of the regional workshop were as follows: to provide opportunity for the exchange of experiences on the integration of population education, core messages in school and out of school programs. To enable the participants to develop alternative designs for integrating population education, core messages in primary education and literacy programs. To develop prototype materials illustrative to the integration of population core messages in primary education and literacy program. Participation. The regional workshop held in Indonesia was attended by 14 participants from India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. The 1986 experts meeting on regional programs for the universalization of primary education and literacy. Inter alia stressed the need to promote primary education and literacy so that the quality of life can be improved. Otherwise, universalization of primary education and eradication of illiteracy will be difficult to achieve. Many countries have yet to recognize that population education can help make literacy programs more relevant and functional. The 1990 Regional Consultative Seminar in Population Education noted that in many countries, the teaching on learning materials used in literacy and primary education classes had very little, if any, population related concepts. In countries where integration of population education concept has been successfully achieved, there is still a need to ensure the systematic integration of population education messages in appropriate subjects in primary schools as well as in literacy and continuing education programs. One of the ways to achieve the goal is through the development of alternative integration designs and prototypes integrated teaching learning materials for use in primary education, literacy, and continuing education programs. The integration of population education in the population education programs of most, if not all, countries in Asia and the Pacific. A separate course in population education does not appear feasible for primary and secondary schools. In non-formal education, experience has shown that population education acquires a deeper meaning and greater relevance if it is integrated in ongoing development programs, which are of immediate concern and interest to the out-of-school target. Integration thus is more effective than having population education as a separate program. Integration can be done by incorporating a population education topic in one or more regular subjects in the formal school curriculum or in non-formal education programs. Integration can also be achieved through the infusion of population education topics or concepts in relevant areas within specific subjects or programs. In some non-formal education programs, such as skills development, it may be difficult to identify a relevant area where population education can be integrated. In such a case, population education is introduced as a separate component. The integration approach has inherent limitations, whereas the separate subject approach allows breadth and depth in the treatment of the topic. Integration limits the population education concepts that can be taken up. Natural integration is restricted to population education concepts that are related to the contents of the regular subjects or program to ensure that these are not diluted. Care must also be taken not to overload the regular subject or program, considering the limited time allotted to it and fact that it must also convey other quality important social thrust and concerns. The integration approach in introducing population education has two preconditions, namely, first one is knowledge of the contents of the regular subjects or program, and second one is knowledge of the contents of population education. In most instances, the contents of the regular subjects and program are unknown factor. However, the population education contents that will be integrated have to be carefully selected by curriculum and material developers as population education is a relatively new field and the needs of the specific target groups must be addressed. Consideration in determining population education learning requirements to guide curriculum and material developers in the sections of appropriate and meaningful population education learning requirements and contents. The following considerations should be taken into account. First one is National Population Policy. The National Population Policy contains the country's priority concern and thrusts with respect to the implementation of the population program. It determines the parameters within which the population program in a country can operate. Conceptualization of population education. Conceptualization provides the goals, concerns, perspectives, and/or definition of population education that a country or program has adopted. It describes the nature of population education, needs of society. In selecting the population education, learning requirements consideration should be given to the social milieu and social cultural values of the target groups. Population situation and problems in the social environment of the target groups should be used as a criteria in the selecting the content of the population education to be taught and disseminated. Although the population needs and problems in large communities may not be of immediate concern and the significance for the group, they should nevertheless be addressed. Developments in the larger society or community eventually affect the lives of other groups in the society. There should be a reasonable balance between contents and address the needs of a particular target group and those that concern the entire country. Intended program targets. The target of a population education program include in school children and youth and are out of school youth and adults. And school targets include primary, secondary, or tertiary school students. The literacy levels of out of school youth and adults vary. Some may be literate, while others may be semi literate or literate. The target also include special interest groups like mothers, farmers, women, and so on. In determining the population education, learning requirements of these groups consideration should be given to their needs and characteristics. In relation to population education and related issues, this ensures the relevance, usefulness, suitability, and acceptability of the population education contents or learning requirements selected for specific target groups. Core messages developed by the National Population Program. In some countries, the core or key messages of the National Population Program, developed in a collaboration with participating agencies, are based on the national population policy and the goals and objectives of the program. This ensures that agencies implementing the National Population Program will disseminate standard and salient population messages aimed at the population problems of the country. Limitations of the integration approach. The integration approach limits the population education concepts that can be integrated in a regular subjects or program, given the fact that limited population education contents can be incorporated in the curriculum. Learning requirements must be selected with care to ensure the inclusion of important concepts and messages which have the potential to produce the desired knowledge as well as attitudinal and behavioral changes in the learners. Issues and problems in the preparation and use of population education materials. The population education unit is not always located in the office responsible for curriculum development in the Ministry of Education. As a result, the development of curricula for regular subjects often disregards the integration of population education. Where integration is carried out, the quality of concepts reflected in the curricula leaves much to be desired, as the integration is done by writers and staff members who do not have sufficient background in the population education. Population education staff must collaborate with the staff of curriculum development offices to ensure a balanced integration of population education in the curricula and textbooks. When population education is not integrated in the curriculum and textbooks of regular subjects or programs, but is instead treated in a separate volume, there exists a danger that inadequately motivated teachers and field workers will neglect taking it up. To prevent this problem, the following activities are recommended: orientation or training of users, regular monitoring of the use of the such materials, and inclusion of test items on population education in the examination of students in the formal school systems. In some countries, primary education, literacy programs, and continuing education are the responsibility of different ministers and offices. This results in problems concerning coordination and articulation of population education contents or messages. To foster closer links among the people implementing these three programs, a coordination mechanism or a structure, such as a task force, committee, or council, should be established. The strategies to overcome problems identified in the school curriculum through population education. An area of concern is the overloading of the school curriculum. The question of how population education should be covered remains a serious issue. Many approaches, such as infusion, integration through subunits and separate subunits, and co curricular activities, have been used. Each approach has its own strengths and weaknesses. The next questions related to the breadth and depth of the population education content to be included in the curriculum. The response varies from country to country depending on their respective situations. The nature of the content and the form which population education should take in the school curricula is an important question. Now, concerns like sex education, AIDS, premarital sex, and early pregnancy are emerging. Educators are seeking the most appropriate modalities for their inclusion. This will necessitates constant review and updating. There is also the question of using new materials to enrich population education. The success of such programs depends on the leadership and political commitment of the countries concerned. As reflected in the allocation of resources, the level of coordination among various agencies and their willingness to orientate key personnel in population education. Very often, policies are not supported by appropriate resources allocation and the implementation of activities. Guidelines in curriculum and materials development. The integration of population education concepts in the curriculum or materials development program does not guarantee that it will be taught effectively. A teacher or a field worker who has no background in population education will most likely not have the commitment and competence to discuss and handle population education matters and issues. Even trained teachers and field workers may find it difficult to teach population education without the support of relevant curricular materials. The availability of appropriate population education teaching materials can contribute to effective instruction in the population education guidelines. First, determining the curriculum needs. A population education program which is designed to influence personal aspects of human behavior, such as sex preferences and desired number of children, should be able to respond to the felt needs and perceptions of the target population. Population education is a crucial need considering the fact that population-related behavior bears on the quality of life, particularly in the developing countries in the region, where population growth rate has surpassed economic development and provision of social services. At the global level, rapid population growth is adversely affecting the environment. These and other related factors provide a conceptual framework for the development of a population education curriculum, allowing for variation in its conceptualization. Since population education is central to the planning process of a country, most countries in the region have formulated a population policy which forms part of the national development plan. The achievement of national development goals hinges largely on the success of the national population plan. The curricula in both formal and non-formal education reflect national development goals, policies, and plans. Because of the importance, urgency, and sensitivity of population education interventions, the curriculum should adequately reflect the needs of the community as well as the personal needs of the learners and should respond to their personal goals and aspirations. To sum up, the parameters of curriculum development in population education covers the following: conceptualization of population education, national policies, development goals, population policies, social values, pedagogical principles and consideration, community needs, individual and family needs, technological development and resource constraints. Within these parameters, certain core messages can be derived through consultation at the regional level on key concepts such as small family size, delayed marriage, responsible parenthood, population planning for environment and resource conservation development, reorientation of population-related beliefs and values, and the enhancement of the status of women. To ensure that curriculum development reflects community as well as individual needs, the following activities are recommended: survey, consultative dialogue, interview, observation. Second one is developing curricula and materials. Curriculum development normally involves the following steps: situation analysis and problem identification, definition of educational objectives, elaboration of content areas, identification of teaching methods and learning experiences, sequencing and grading of content, evaluation of learners. There is growing concern about the quality of educational interventions. The point is, while all the necessary steps may have been taken, there is no guarantee that the desired change in behavior will occur. The following factors contribute to the quality of educational interventions: clear statement of expected outcomes in the form of competencies, validation of content in accordance with the expected competencies, quality of learning materials and its accessibility, competence and motivation of the teacher, increased learners' participations in the curriculum. And third one is use of teaching learning materials. Population education is a special kind of intervention and should not be handled in a conventional manner. Population education messages should be conveyed in a way that fosters attitudinal change and value orientation, while enabling the learner to engage in self-analysis for the purpose of taking far-reaching decisions about himself or herself. The material to be used should provide ample opportunity for learners' participation. Particularly in the case of adults, it may not be possible to make population education synonymous with the imparting of literacy. It is, therefore, all the more important that the material used are presented in a way which allows the maximum opportunity for the learner to react to them. In preparing materials for adult learners, it is important that they be provided with self-contained learning units. Particularly in the case of adults, it is therefore all the more important that the materials used are presented in a way which allows maximum opportunity for the learner to react to them. In preparing materials for adult learners, it is important that they be provided with self-contained learning units. This is because adult learners do not regularly participate in the programs and the availability of self-contained units will encourage them to make the best use of their time in adult literacy centers. The materials to be used should provide guidelines for their use. First one is preparation of curricula and materials. The following general principles need to be observed in the preparation of population education curricula and materials. Curricula and teaching learning materials should be based on the needs and problems of the target audience. The intended targets will find the curricula and materials meaningful and useful if these address their needs and problems. They should be appropriate to the age, maturity, interest, and ability of the target audience. The curricula and materials will be interesting, understandable, and acceptable to the learners if these are suited to their characteristics. They should contribute to the development of population education goals in particular and to national development goals in general. More than achieving national education goals, the curricula and the teaching learning materials should contribute to the development of national development goals. They should reflect local situations and or make use of local resources. The learners can identify with the curricula and the materials if these make extensive use of local situation and resources. They should make the learners active rather than passive participation in the learning process. The curricula and the materials should be presented in a manner that encourages the participation and involvement of the target audience. This contributes to the effective teaching learning. They should be flexible enough to allow adaptations and modifications to suit local, local situations, changing needs, trends, and new developments of knowledge. Curriculum development is a dynamic process. Adaptation and revision should be made as needs, conditions, and developments call for them. Some areas or themes have to be emphasized at certain points. Learners' involvement and participation in curriculum and material development must be maximized. Whenever feasible, the participation of the target audience should be encouraged. From the identification of needs to the selection of types of materials, the actual writing for older out of school targets to pre-testing. As much as possible, a multidisciplinary team of writers should be involved in curriculum and materials development. Program implementers at different levels and specialists in different fields, including research and evaluation and production of artwork, should comprise the team of material developers to ensure the quality of the contents, the presentation style, and artwork. Steps in developing integrated curricula and materials. The following steps should be followed in developing integrated curricula and instructional materials in population education. Determine the need